Hello, everyone out there in podcast world. Hope you're having a wonderful day. You are listening to or watching the Service Business Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Tersh Blissett, and I have an awesome new co-host here with me, Joshua Crouch. If you happen to not see our couple of videos that we created and everything, introducing Josh, we're going to do a full episode, really just letting everybody know Josh's background. He's been on the show actually also, but just for anybody who might have missed it, we're going to do another episode for that. But I just am super excited to have Josh here. And real fast, Josh, would you say hey and do a quick intro of yourself?
Hey everyone, I am Joshua Crouch, formerly about 9 years in the HVAC industry. The last 15 months or so have been primarily serving the HVAC, plumbing, electrical industry from a marketing perspective. So I now own Relentless Digital, which is a digital marketing company focused on organic growth for your company, and super excited to be teamed up with Tersh here, as we've known each other for a bunch of years through multiple coaching courses and everything else. So it's awesome to be able to be a part of this and hopefully give back to all of you awesome home service and commercial service businesses that could truly care about your customers and your business.
Perfect. Couldn't have said it better myself. With that being said, also, I'd like to introduce David Indursky. And David is with Encon, and they're based out of Ocean, New Jersey. And they really, David's backstory is really awesome and amazing. Took over the business like 2000-ish, was at $3 to $4 million a year. Shifted everything over to more of a digital plan and really started utilizing modern technology, and has grown that business up to 35 million in 2019. And so we're going to talk a lot about some amazing things about how he grew it, but also our main focus on today's show is going to be about indoor air quality. And if you've read the title, you call it the title, what IAQ is good IAQ. So what type of indoor air quality is actually the good type of indoor air quality, or are we creating more harm than we are good? So anyways, with that being said, welcome to the show, David.
Well, thank you very much. Excited to be here. Absolutely.
So give a better explanation of your background. What makes you an expert in the industry, and tell us a little bit about how you got to where you're at now.
Certainly. So I had the privilege of growing up in the business. My father started the company in 1968. We say he's our resident expert, our chief firefighter. He's 83, still comes to work every day. So I do have the privilege of being in a generational business, and we still get to share Thanksgiving dinner together. So it's a rarity sometimes in a business. But I came into the business full time in about 1992. Grew up in the field, wearing the tools, hanging ductwork, making ductwork, working in the shop, and grew over the years. And as the business ebbed and flowed, we had a major marketing shift from the 90s to 2000s, where we really went from the public sector 100% in the private sector. Started building automation group, really focused on the service group. And like you said, we went from a lot of growth organically, really never did a marketing campaign over the years, really just based on our reputation, the quality of the work we did, and the quality of the customers we worked with and kept. And it's really done well for us, both with our staff. We've got a lot of long timers here, people here longer than me. I really give the credit of that culture that my father started, long before I was here, and been able to keep and retain good people, which is very hard to do, especially in today's market.
So with that transition from your father to you taking over reins, how was that transition? I know you said you can still have Thanksgiving dinner together, which is, we joke and laugh about that chuckle, but the reality is there's some transitions that are really not smooth. So tell us about that. How'd you do it smoothly?
And they're really not. And in all fairness to him, I give him all the credit. He allowed me to come in here and take his baby. And I never called his baby ugly. I just said, let's do things differently. And And I say that because, we leverage technology. We've since gotten rid of all our file cabinets. And every time we do, he's like, where are we going to find things? So I'm like, it's a server. We could do it. And the more they embraced that different culture, the different evolution of it, the better it became. And quite frankly, I think we're a better organization for it. And we've grown because of it. But if he didn't if he didn't give me the trust and confidence to do what I wanted to do differently, we never could have. And we subsequently may not have either worked together or couldn't share Thanksgiving together. And I say that half tongue in cheek because many of us know people in generational businesses that it tears their family apart. So I'm really proud of the fact, and I thank him all the time that he's allowed me the ability to do that and a little differently than he would have.
Kudos to you guys, man. That's an awesome story. You don't see that too often.
We don't. And it's funny because we've done he and I did a podcast a few months ago together, and it's a laugh because it's like you don't realize it as you're doing it. It's kind of like, how do you boil the frog? It's a little bit of a time before you know it. It's like, we were here, now we're there. How'd we get here? And it's just like, and it's worked. And we've had our troubles and we've had our, financial issues. And, we live in a volatile market that we all choose to be part of. And we trust each other. And it's great having a mentor that when he says he's got a problem, he owns the problem. I don't have to deal with him on it. And in his role today, we call him our chief firefighter. He does the things that he likes to do, stays at it day to day. We hire people. He walks around the hallway here. He's like, who is that person? Like, so, in the world of COVID, we used to do a lot of events where making sure everyone knew each other was a huge part of who we are. And we're trying to figure out how to get that back, make sure we don't lose that out there. We've had some growth. We acquired an organization during COVID. So our headcount went from 80 to 140, and making sure that everyone knows my father, knows the value proposition that we put to the table.
Yeah, that's really cool because that really says a lot about you because like you said, you didn't say it, you didn't come out right and say it, but a lot of times people, this is our child. Like, we've taken and nurtured this business from the start to where it's at. So this is our baby. So it's almost 100%. Like that was a sibling, like the business was a sibling to you whenever you took over. And so if you had come in and just said, well, this child of yours was raised completely wrong. You say that your dad had a lot to do with it, but I can hear through your voice that it was definitely a lot of you as well, understanding that it was his little child and he nurtured it and passed along to you and you're doing the same. So like Josh said, kudos to you for sure on that.
Well, thank you.
With getting into indoor air quality, what do y'all do? A lot of indoor air quality, and I guess you don't just do mechanical, is that correct?
We don't. We're really we call ourselves, we do a lot of building solution stuff nowadays. We do service and maintenance and repair. We do building automation. We do design build. We do traditional mechanical work, and we now are a full service electrical contractor. But we really made a shift a long time ago into the commercial industrial space and the hospital market, in the clean room space, a lot of ISO rooms. So we've been using a lot of the words and terminology that became very, very media centered over the last, since March of last year with COVID. The words of ionization, the words of bipolar, what does it mean? Were things that we've been doing for years. And none of the technology that was used and still being used is new to the market. So we've been doing this, and I like to think that we've become our own experts just because of the 15, 20 years we've been accustomed to how to use it and where to implement it.
With that being said, you have a lot of experience in sterile hospital rooms and all of that. Do you find that the dual ionization or like a halo or something to that effect, is that what you have always used in those types of atmospheres, or have you brought fresh air in? Or, I mean, because it seems like, especially in a sterile place like that, you'd have to really filter it in order to bring outside air in?
I think they're all important pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one magic bullet for any environment, whether it's a school, whether it's your home, but ventilation is incredibly important. We stopped using the word fresh air years ago, and we used the word outside air merely because we did a large project and next to it was a sanitation plant. No one knew that. And they're like, why is all this smell coming in? So we stopped using the word fresh air. We bring in outside air. But we monitor that. We can measure that. Same thing with ions and the halo and all the other technology and UV lights. UV lights has been doing a great job keeping coils clean for years. There's nothing new about that technology. HEPA filters, doing all that in conjunction with everything else to fit the best needs of the client and the use group is really what's important. We're big advocates to say there's not one thing that solves every problem.
So how do you go into a building and can tell what's going to solve what problem, or how do you determine what their problem is? Is this like an instant thing? Do you have a instant measuring, or you have to watch it over time?
I think it's, first of all, tremendous transparent communication with the end user. Mm-hmm. What are your real problems? What's really going on? Oh, we have mold. We have an odd smell. We have a sick building. We have this. We have customers we have clients in our building that are getting sick. We can then measure, validate, and clarify exactly what's going on. We have enough tools and instruments, and we already had part of our business unit. We do building automation, so we can see that in real time. We can monitor how many people are in the building versus how much outside air we need to bring in. We do it in respect to the code, but regardless of the code, because there are times that we may need to bring in some more outside air and ventilation than the code says we have to. There are times we may want to flush a building out. They just put in new carpeting. The VOCs, there's only one way to get the VOCs out. We got to flush it. Mm-hmm. So, there are different ways to do it. We do a lot of economizers. We do outside air optimization as our normal core business. But last year, the energy code, the ASHRAE, the engineering community said, we're willing to bend the code of this right now and increase the outside air. And if it means we've got to run mechanical cooling, we live in the Northeast, so humidity is a huge part of our normal business. And mold is as dangerous, if not long-term more dangerous to a building than anything else we're talking about. And if you start growing mold in a wall in 2, 3, 4 years, we're going to have a whole new host of problems that people think, oh, I brought in, 80% relative humidity for a summer, and I thought I was doing a great job. And now everyone's really sick. Oh, yeah. So you need to be mindful of all of it. One thing, none of this stuff happens in a vacuum.
So with that being said, do you recommend that monitoring, the long-term monitoring, and what most of the conversation we've had here is commercial application, commercial industrial type application. What, if any, thoughts do you have on the residential side of things? If someone's listening to this, they're a contractor for the residential industry or market, what could they take away from this whole the conversation as well?
I think on the residential side, again, the same product, same technology, same methods hold true. Our government said MERV 13 filters is the answer. That's going to solve all our problems. But, consumers didn't understand that your quarter horsepower blower motor can't push through a MERV 13 filter. And just because someone on TV said that's the answer, it's not the only answer. And all of a sudden we're freezing coils. So looking at filtration is a tremendously important part of the environment. How are you running your fan? Commercial applications, we run fans during the entire occupied mode. Most homeowners do not. They let the unit cycle on and off. Let the fan run all the time, so you're burning some fan horsepower, but you're constantly cleaning. If you put in a halo or something in your environment, it only works if the fan's on.
Yeah.
So doing that,
leaving the fan in the on position, some would argue that it's gonna rip the condensation off the coil and rehumidify air and stuff. Is it enough of a benefit, the filtration aspect of it, enough of a benefit to offset the lack of dehumidification potentially that could be going on?
I think it depends on your marketplace.
Yeah.
Some places that are in high dry altitudes, it's not a concern.
Mhm.
I think that's why I think the point is none of it happens in a vacuum. You got to look at all of it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You've got to look at, there are ways to, in the dry, in our climate, in the Northeast, we get tremendously dry. So how are you doing your humidification in your house? How are you controlling to make sure you don't go above 60% and keep that coil dry? So if you have a wet climate, put UV lights in on your filter, on your coil, keep it clean, clean the condensate pans, put the tabs in, do all the good general practice maintenance that should be done to keep that environment clean. Because if you've got green stuff growing and scale in your condensate pan, I don't care what kind of ionization you put in, you'll have other sick issues.
So you're telling me we have to do maintenance on systems?
I'm telling you, we've got
regularly.
Man, you're just making all these rules. I just don't even know.
No, I'm sorry. I'm told we make guidelines. We don't make rules.
I love that. Yeah, I'm writing that down. I love that.
But in all seriousness, commercial or residential, there are best practices that should be followed. Mm-hmm. And all of this stuff, to the point of your home, if you've got cats or dogs or children with asthma, maybe you want to go to some other better HEPA filters. Maybe you want to get a better ECM motor on that blower housing to make sure you can push through it, because it's important.
Yeah. And also for anybody that's listening to this, then you're not an HVAC contractor and you haven't experienced this. Thank you for listening to this or watching this. But also, I hope that you understand that some big box stores will justify the extra cost of a better HEPA filter or a MERV 13 filter with saying that it's a 3-month filter or even a 6-month filter. It's not the case. It's like you said, it's not in a vacuum. It's not every circumstance isn't the same. If you have Siberian Huskies and hardwood floors and your return grill is at the bottom of your wall, you're not going to go 6 months with changing a filter or even 3 months. Heck, you might not even go a month without having to change that filter. The better filter, the more dirt it catches, the more it becomes a blockage. So just keep that in your mind too.
And just to follow up on that point, we have no way to predict it until we do it in your environment for some time. So where previously with a MERV 8, we changed it quarterly and we were fine. When we go to a MERV 13, it may be monthly. We don't know that. And we won't know it until we live that for a little period of time and we get a better understanding of what really happens.
Hey, David, I love the organic growth side of your story. How do you guys go and approach people that own buildings and ask them for a building audit, or do they come to you? How does that part work?
We live in the referral-based business, and we ask the question: if we're doing a good job for you, would you be willing to recommend us to a friend, a colleague, or a peer? And if the answer is yes, that's great. We appreciate that. We'll take as good care of them as we did you, because we know there are many competent people out there, and we're only as good as our last job. We're only as good, we only have our reputation. And I'm a big advocate to say we make mistakes, but we're really good at fixing our mistakes. And if we made a mistake, we own it, we live up to it, we honor it, and we fix it. And we try to over communicate what we're doing and what happened. Because in our business, there's a lot of moving parts. And to say that we're perfect all the time, I don't think it's a fair testimonial to what any of us do out there, because it's hard.
Josh, yesterday Josh and I were in a clubhouse chat, and someone brought up a really good question pertaining to, and you should be able to answer this a lot better than he or I could yesterday in the call, and that pertains to reviews, Google My Business. Do you find that in the commercial and industrial space, do you feel like you're affected by your GMB and your reviews as much as someone who or like a Yelp or anything like that, as much as someone who is like more residential focused, or maybe they're 100% residential?
I don't think we are. No. I think the commercial, and especially we deal with a lot of property managers, a lot of remote ownerships. So it's just different. But, you get a property manager that goes from company A or portfolio A to portfolio B. the telling testimonial is they bring you with you.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't do a good job for them, they lose your number very quickly. The best phone call we get is so-and-so has moved on. And when they get to their new landing ground, they call you up and say to their existing ownership, hey, these are the guys that can fix these problems. They've done it before. And if you build that trust, to me, that's the best way to grow a business.
Okay. So how would you take, and I know Josh is going to ask the same question. That's why I'm just butting in and asking it. If I'm just starting out my business, like I just started it today, what would you say going down the same route that you're going, commercial, industrial, want to take charge in indoor air quality and automation? Like, what would you say, would you recommend the first couple steps to be?
Value your customers. They're really your best source of future leads in business. And if there's a problem, first of all, communicate with them, trust them, treat them the right way. And, especially in today's market, just call them back. How many of us are trying to get work done somewhere and say, no one will call me back? Pick up the phone. And it's already, look, I find it, hey, we can't be out there next week, but how's the next week? And they're great. That's all they want is honest answers, and just be truthful to them. Again, my father taught me when I have an older sister. My father said to me, when you start dating, treat anyone you date like you want someone to treat your sister. It's no different. Just treat them the way you want to be treated.
Great advice.
And maybe you'll have a little growth. Maybe you have a lot of growth. I don't know. Maybe, you figure out where that spot is for you. But all of a sudden, people start saying, hey, you know what? I called and they showed up. They did a good job for a fair price. Doesn't have to be the cheapest price, but a fair price. And if you make a mistake, own it. Hey, Mrs. Jones, we made your carpeting dirty. Here's how we're going to fix it. Here's what we're going to do. Don't run from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to me. It's really that simple. Like there's all these best practice groups and all this other stuff. And it's literally just don't be a dick and take care of your customers. I mean, it's literally that simple, and you'll grow your business. But it's so difficult for people to they're focused on all these new things and the shiny object syndrome, and they forget about the most important thing: your customers and your employees. Those are literally the two most important things you have.
We spend we spend as much money as we do on technical training for our techs and our staff as we do the social component of it. And you think it's silly. Here's how to say please. Here's how to say thank. If someone walks on a roof and I see a screw or a roofing nail on the roof, it drives me crazy.
Yes.
And if I hear, that's not our, I don't care, because when the owner walks up here, he doesn't know whose screw it is. He thinks it's ours. So pick it up. Yep. We had a mechanic a few months ago show me a video that he went inside the blower compartment with a little electric blower, and he blew out all the leaves. Because when someone else walked up there, that's all they see. They don't know if the compressor's got the good superheater or subcool, and they don't care. But they see the way we take care of it. If there's fingerprints around the thermostat, take out your little wipey, clean it.
Dang,
it costs you nothing.
You are my, oh man, like you are preaching to the choir here. Like I'm recording all of this, and I'm like, look, David
Play
said
it back
do
to
it.
your team.
Yeah, David said do it. It's not just me. David said the same thing. And like you said, when somebody says, well, that's how it was when I got here. That's when my head explodes. Like, oh, that's my, don't say that word to me.
And it's the same thing. Again, we only have our image. When you pull up to an owner's building or a customer's house, have your van be clean. Don't open up your back door and have, 3 days of work fall out, because that's the impression you're making on how you're going to leave their environment. And no one wants to walk into Mrs. Jones's basement and make it a mess.
Yep.
Nobody. That's all. Again, that's what they see.
That's the perception that they have. I mean, 100%. And so what you're saying reminds me a lot of what a guest of ours and a good friend of ours, Steve Kosha, he teaches soft skills. He just travels the whole country teaching soft skills. And he's like, don't put anything on the dash. Nothing should be on the dash. When you open your door up, nothing should be falling out. You know, you pull up in residential, you pull up so that they can peek out the window and see the side of your van. And you don't want a Coke lid or a Coke bottle falling out the van whenever you open the door up. So,
and no one wants to know, you know, who you're affiliated with. No bumper stickers on the vans.
Yes.
You know,
ours
you
are
may
all wrapped.
love.
You can't put bumper stickers on ours because you're going to be
Tersh
putting it
would
over
blow
one
a
of our
gasket if they did.
Yeah.
You touching all my good nerves here. Oh, this is funny. Cool, David. We are right up on our time limit here. I mean, this time has flown by. Josh, do you have any closing questions or comments here?
I was going to have one last thing. It was, as far as the education of indoor air quality, David, do you guys do anything to get the word out to other business owners, property owners, things like that, to educate them on why this stuff is important?
We do, and especially, you know, you think back to last March, April, when the world really had a lot of uncertainty around it. We had probably 4 people in here. That's all they were doing was talking to our customers, educating, informing what we knew. And what we knew then is different than what we know now. But it was as simple as getting them on the phone, sharing manufacturers' literatures, sharing white papers, but going through what we know, what we didn't know, what we think we could prove. You know, a lot of the products we talk about, you cannot see, taste, or smell.
Mm-hmm.
So telling a consumer that you're going to spend money to do this and we think it might work, we want to make sure they're truly invested in it and they understand what we're doing. And that just takes time.
Okay, so I'll end my last question piggybacked off of Josh's question, and that is, how do you educate your technicians on the indoor air quality that you're offering? And then, like, what's snake oil, not snake oil? Like
how do you get the buy-in?
Yeah, how do you get the buy-in from?
We did the same thing, you know. We did it with some internal stuff, but we brought in all the, you know, we either through the distributors or through the manufacturers themselves. We did our share of Zoom calls because the technician is the one the customer trusts. Mm-hmm. Anyone else calls, you're a sales guy telling me someone, when they call up Joe, their technician that they've known for 10 years, hey Joe, your sales guy called me and told me what do you think? And if those guys are not committed and believe and buy into the product, they're not going to promote it. So we went through it. We rep a few different lines for different applications, and we brought all the manufacturers in, and we asked them a lot of the tough questions that we want to become the expert on. Because again, we don't want to ask someone for money and not know that we're giving them the right product for their building.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than that. Like, you ask them for money and this is going to solve your problems. And then a year later, you're like,
it doesn't.
Psych. Yeah. Whoops. My bad. No, David, I appreciate your insight and your candidness, because it really is great to hear that you've had success with this. And this, I love that you did this before it was cool, like, so to speak. And there's so many people who COVID happened and they were like, all right, now it's time for us to start selling indoor air quality, you know? And at that time you opened yourself up for all kinds of lawsuits and offering the wrong products because it's whatever your supply house offered or was pushing on you at the time. So it's really cool to talk to someone who has been offering it for years prior to anything happening pandemic wise. So with that being said, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you guys, David, for the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And for everybody that's watching, listening to this episode, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Service Business Mastery Podcast. It is a podcast focused on service business owners, managers, and technicians who are considering becoming business owners. Until we talk again next time, have a wonderful and safe week. And another shout out to Josh again. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Thank you.